On the face of it, the Alaska summit between President Trump and Vladimir Putin had only one concrete result. Instead of seeking a ceasefire as a prelude to peace, the US president agreed to Putin's idea of peace based on Ukrainian concessions and vaguely described security guarantees. I'm joined now by Diane Francis, senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, to discuss the latest events. Diane, welcome and thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
We just heard from the White House that Putin agreed to meet with Zelenskyy to discuss peace. How significant is this development, in your opinion?
Well, I'm pretty shocked by it, considering that after the summit in Alaska between Putin and Trump, and the summit with European leaders between Trump, Zelenskyy, Putin's response was to bomb the heck out of Ukraine again. And a spokesman also immediately responded that the discussion with European leaders about a security force that would go with boots on the ground to help protect and provide guarantees of security for Ukraine was absolutely out of the question. It was a complete rebuke of all the hard work that Trump and others have done. And I think just underscores the fact that, there's only one way to deal with Mr. Putin, and that is to fight force with force. Now, I would guess that he didn't say to himself, gee, I've gone too far, because Trump is volatile. I mean, bombing right after the summit is just unbelievably awful. And perhaps he is a little concerned. And so now he's kicking the can further down the road and delaying it by talking about a trilateral with Zelenskyy and Putin and Trump. I don't put a lot of stock in it. And I would hope that Mr. Trump finally realizes he's really being played, and so is the world, and takes much stronger measures.
Right, but supporters of Trump are saying that, he's making progress because he's entangling Putin in these discussions, and he's making it more and more difficult for Putin to jeopardize his efforts. So he's offering some carrots, then he's also threatening sticks. Yes, we may agree that these sticks do not carry a lot of weight, but at the end of the day, as you yourself said, it may be harder for Putin to wriggle out this time.
Well, I would say, sure, you can have a meeting, Vladimir, but I want it tomorrow on the phone, and I want it public, and I want Mr. Zelenskyy involved. And we're going to talk about substantive issues, and you have to promise me, you have to back off what you've said so far about land swaps, or the deal's off. I mean, he's got to start to toughen up his approach instead of saying, okay, well, maybe this time it'll work. It will not work. Vladimir Putin wants to continue the war, and he will until he's absolutely prevented from doing so.
But Putin also wants to do business with America. He wants to end Russia's isolation. So, no, you disagree with that?
Well, he may want to do that, but who's going to deal with that regime and those awful people that support him, like the oligarchs? Look, the point is, and Trump said it very bluntly, this he did say, he said he wants to do business with us, not as long as there's a war going on. That's just never going to happen. So, you can't put the cart before the horse. Stop the war and stop playing games. Stop it. Stop the fighting. And then get to a table perhaps and negotiate. But he doesn't want to negotiate because he's making inches on the battlefield as this saga continues to unfold. I mean, all you have to know about his intention is that after the summit and the talk about a trilateral, he bombed the heck out of Ukraine. He bombed the heck out of it. So, right. I mean, I think the diplomatic dance is important. And I would say that what Trump would be well advised to say is, yes, okay, all right, we'll try it again. It didn't work the last time you bombed and you made me really angry. So stop doing that. And the other thing is, we're going to do it tomorrow. We're not going to drag this out.
So you don't believe that in Alaska, because we don't know that much about what really happened in terms of the leaders' conversation. But can you imagine a situation that, after all, there was some kind of a grand bargain there, at least contours of a grand bargain, where Russia would be able to return, for example, to doing business in the Arctic together with the US, provided the Ukraine conflict is settled?
Well, I think it's okay to make those promises. It doesn't mean you have to keep them any more than Putin thinks he has to keep his promises. So I would string him along too. I think Trump should play him and continue to say, okay, well, maybe it's possible, but first you've got to clean up your act and you've got to do this, this, and that, or nothing's happening. What I find very odd is that for a deal maker like Trump, it's interesting that he has been prevented from pulling out some of the pressure points, such as terrible sanctions against the war machine and against Putin's oil customers. He's not done that when he can do that.
Well, he did that to India, didn't he?
Well, the Russians have said preemptively, you do that, and we won't stop the war. So it's a catch-22. You do it, he doesn't stop the war. You don't do it, he doesn't stop the war. I mean, at some point, a line has to be drawn in the sand by Mr. Trump.
Right, but don't you think that, for example, these levies on India, traditional U.S. ally, Trump has good personal relations with Prime Minister Modi, and suddenly, out of the blue, these tariffs on India for importing Russian oil. Isn't that a signal that Putin understood?
That's a signal he understood, but he didn't put the sanctions on Turkey or Hungary or China. He was very selective, or South Africa. I mean, he was very selective. He picked on India because they happened to be in tariff talks about other things. So why pick on India? I mean, look, India shouldn't be buying oil from Russia. Nobody should be. So the tariff ban should be across the board, everybody, and shut down the war machine. That's the only way to do it, not just to pick on one country. And so, I mean, I don't disagree with putting tariffs on India for buying Russian oil, but he's got to do that on all the other countries that buy Russian oil.
And what do you make?
Didn't.
Mm-hmm. And what do you make of the European reactions to the summit? They seem to be cautiously optimistic. Is it just a facade, and underneath there's widespread skepticism, or do they see an opportunity there?
I think the Europeans have been very laudable. I was really shocked and gobsmacked, to use a British expression, by the turnout of leaders to Washington on a moment's notice, by their collaboration, by their joint reaction and support for Ukraine, by their praise of Trump for trying to do what he's trying to do. I think it was pitch perfect. Everything they've done is really laudable and very terrific, and it's going to prove to be helpful in the long run. They are also talking about putting boots on the ground, which, Putin's spokesman immediately smacked down hours later, saying, don't you even think you can put somebody from NATO on the ground? We'll target them. And we know that's what would happen. So, they're still playing this game, this dangerous chess game, but the Europeans are on side, and that's really important.
And Trump seems to be going along with the Europeans much more than at the beginning of his presidency, where he basically wanted to discard the Europeans. Now he's even talking about supporting this peacekeeping force, eventual peacekeeping force, with some kind of air support. Isn't that progress in terms of, U.S. involvement in bringing peace to Ukraine?
Absolutely. I think the alliance is getting stronger and stronger as a result of what Trump's journey has been, the Alaska summit, then the Washington summits, and next, hopefully, a trilateral summit. And they're moving step by step with Trump, and they're very united, as opposed to the way things were before about who was paying what to Ukraine for what amount of money. Trump has gotten Europe to agree, and your audience may disagree with me, but I have always felt that Trump is right on one thing, and that is the NATO members were not being fair and pulling their weight. Poland accepted, but they are now. And that's long overdue, and and that's very good news. I think it's also important that Britain and France have been very stalwart in pushing for help and talking about putting boots on the ground, although I think that's very dangerous. And the big news that I'm happy about is Germany is writing the checks because they can afford to, and they were part of this problem in the beginning by buying all the oil and gas from Russia.
So can we imagine a situation where this force on the ground in the end is not a NATO force, but troops under some other, perhaps UN jurisdiction or some other jurisdiction, but actually coming from NATO countries? Is this a possible compromise that can be forced on Moscow?
I think it's a great idea, but Moscow's already said, don't even think about it. Don't think about it. One person from a NATO country that is a soldier helping secure and guarantee the security of Ukrainian will be targeted and shot, and that's what they will do. They will target these people. So you can't have that either. No, Putin has made it very clear. Don't even think about it. Now, that's not to say that a completely voluntary force or a peacekeeping force, but he's got the veto. He's got a veto at the Security Council, which he shouldn't have. He should be booted out of the United Nations. Only the United Nations can order a peacekeeping contingent in an area that needs it, and they will veto it. So will China.
So at the end of the day, will the Americans be forced to send some token force as part of this peacekeeping mission to make it credible and prevent Russian attacks?
I don't think anybody from a NATO country should send anybody as a security guarantee force, because Russia will target them, and I think that would be wrong to put people in harm's way like that. On the other hand, they've got to give money. They've got to give as much money, and they've got to provide as many weapons to Ukraine as they can to bombard the heck out of Russia, and they're willing to do that. And they
Diane,
don't have much choice.
We have to finish.
Americans will do what they can, but they will not do anything on their own.
Diane, thank you very much. Our time is up. Thank you very much. Diane Francis, Atlantic Council.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for watching World News Tonight. I'm Adam Yasser. Good night.